Alright, what's up? Welcome to, as the screen says, a binge eating lecture by a true amateur. So, yeah, before I get into anything, a true amateur, I'm no expert. I'm just speaking on information that I've gathered from my own experience and online sources, studies, videos, etc. And yeah, I think this is just gonna be me getting some things off my chest and hopefully being able to help someone along the way. Okay, so very quickly, if you're unfamiliar with binge eating, what is it? I think it's a very wide spectrum, more than I've written down right here. The main things that I was able to think of are eating past being full and like very much past being full, like to the point where you're about to throw up or where you actually throw up. Emotionally eating, so eating for comfort when you're upset. In these situations where you're eating a lot, being ashamed of the amount of food you're eating and being in a continuous cycle where you're trying to break this binging pattern but you just can't, and every day, every week, every month it just repeats itself to the point where you're so familiar with the process, you know for how long you're going to binge, probably you know how much you'll regret it the next day, and you also know that it is going to happen again, and you're just feeling incredibly out of control around food. Okay, then my personal experience, I've just written a few things down. This isn't everything, but I think these are some points that people might be able to relate to, and kind of just to give an idea of, I guess, at what level my binge eating is. So I think I'll just quickly address all of these points. I mean, I've easily eaten 10,000 calories in one sitting, against my own will, hating every bite, after every bite regretting it. But I think that that's also the point of comfort that I mentioned earlier. After every bite, you just have that regret and it makes you more upset than you already were. But since in these scenarios, food is your comfort, you then go for another bite to suppress that upset feeling that you got from the last bite. And yeah, this just kind of puts you in that loop where you keep eating until you just physically can't anymore. Your stomach is about to explode, you're about to throw up. But I'm a pretty big eater. I've been a pretty big eater my whole life. I can easily put down 10,000 calories in one sitting. This might be a long sitting, could be a binge for like an hour, hour and a half. But trust me, I have put down 10,000 calories in one sitting before. Oh yeah, with this, lots of self-hate. I don't know if it's really self-hate. It's partly self-hate, also just the feeling of upset. You're upset with yourself because you did it again, even though you really didn't want to. Kind of brings your confidence down. You're less confident in your ability to deal with this binge eating disorder, if that's what you want to call it. I guess it is. I'm not diagnosed, so it feels kind of wrong to say binge eating disorder. But yeah, just feeling very upset with yourself. This can lead to self-punishment. Now, not really any self-harm, that's not what I partake in. I'm sure there's people out there that do that, but I mean self-punishment as in just kind of like starving, not really starving, but eating less the next day, the day after that, maybe the next week, or having like a 100% ultra clean diet, whatever, doing extra cardio, just stuff to kind of offset the amount of calories that you consumed. And I think out of all points related to binge eating, this is probably the most normal one. I don't think this is all too crazy. I even think with a healthy mindset, it honestly makes sense. You ate a lot. It doesn't matter to eat less the next day or exercise a bit more. Also, I think a pretty common one, avoiding social events because there's going to be food involved and you're not sure if you're going to be able to control yourself around this food, or it just stresses you out because it's food that's unhealthy for you. Maybe because it is food that you would typically binge on. Or just even post binge, the day after, even the same day, you just feel so disgusted with yourself, so upset with yourself. You don't even want to see other people, you don't want to go out. This one's also pretty annoying. It's not recognized as a real problem by the general population. If you go to other people talking about the struggle, they kind of look at you crazy. That's why I kind of keep it to myself. I try not to really ever talk about it. Because in my experiences, the time I have try to talk about it, yeah, you kind of just get looked at crazy, which, I mean, makes sense. Most people don't struggle with this, they don't understand the struggle. I don't understand some other people's struggles or addictions, so I really can't blame them. But it would be a lot easier, I feel like, to open up about being addicted to smoking, alcohol, whatever, because that's like a pretty socially accepted addiction and a very common one. And I think in the public's eye, it's also different because you can quit smoking and you can quit drinking alcohol and then live a completely healthy life. But obviously, you can't quit eating. You need food to survive. So I think for most people it's also in that sense hard to comprehend how can you be addicted to something that's so important and literally crucial, it's necessary to survive. So yeah, it's kind of just hard talking to people about it because generally you are pretty misunderstood. This one's pretty obvious. The worst stomach pains. I usually have this the day after, even 2 days after. You know, my stomach constantly hurts. Every time I eat, it hurts. It's basically in combination with feeling sluggish days after. It's like you're in a constant sugar crash. Probably because your sleep is also pretty bad the night of the binge because you're digesting so much junk food. So yeah, these two kind of link to each other. I think these are also pretty common, especially the stomach pains. I don't know if people also have this sluggish feeling that I have. I have this pretty badly. Like the next day, I really don't function well. Obviously, thinking about food 24/7, laying in bed, fantasizing about what you're gonna eat the next day. Not only the stuff that you're gonna eat, but also just the situations that you're gonna be in. If you're gonna be at a social event, you'll be thinking about, first off, what food is there going to be? How am I going to get food? Or how am I not going to let food control my entire day, my entire time that I'm spending there, especially? Because ideally, you'd want to be there just not even having to think about food. But that isn't really ever the case because you're kind of thinking about food 24/7. And yeah, as I said, not only the food that you're going to be eating, but also just the stress if you're somewhere else not knowing what food is going to be there. You're thinking about binging 24/7, and not that you're going to binge, but the fact that you don't want to binge. You're constantly thinking about, okay, at that social event, I want to not trigger a binge. That's like worst case scenario, that cannot happen. And you kind of just keep yourself obsessed with the topic of food, the topic of binging. I've eaten food that isn't mine, not like stealing, but I have younger siblings, sometimes they go to the grocery store, get snacks. And then when I have a binge eating episode, I'll just eat all of their food, everything I see. And yeah, also my experience, multiple binges in one day. This to me doesn't happen that often. Probably also because usually when I binge, it's at night. And after I binge, I just go to bed. So there isn't any time for a second binge. But if I also have a binge earlier on in the day, it's basically guaranteed that at night I'm gonna binge again. Just because I'll be so unhappy with myself and I'll seek that comfort, which I end up seeking in food. And then I just get into that cycle. Okay, then how to deal. So I think very important is to identify your triggers. Usually a binge episode is triggered by something. This can be a feeling, an event, a certain food. Some stuff I've wrote down here as well. Stress, bad sleep. You want to really analyze yourself and look at what causes a binging episode. For me, it is these exact things I've written down. If I'm having a stressful day, especially if I just wake up stressed, I now know that today I'm gonna have to be very cautious because of this emotion. I have analyzed in the past, okay, I binged today. What was I feeling throughout the day? What things happened that could be leading up to this? I think it's very important to just analyze this because then you can be cautious. What I've written down in step 2, you can learn to recognize these triggers. If I'm feeling something today, if I'm doing something today that I have identified as a trigger, that I know has in the past led to or contributed towards a binge, then I can create personal awareness today. And yeah, this is so important, just creating that personal awareness, but not only that, also remembering this. I can wake up in the morning stressed, knowing, okay, I'm stressed, I'm going to be more likely to binge later today, but then throughout the day, I might get busy, I might get distracted, or I might just forget it. And then in the evening, I'll have completely forgotten that I was aware that I was stressed, that I was more likely to binge. And you know what? I then end up binging. Literally, when making this page yesterday, I was thinking of next time I recognize a trigger, I should just write a little X on my hand or something so that I'm constantly reminded throughout the day that I need to watch out because I am more likely to binge. So yeah, this is something that I still can really work on, remembering it or just doing something that makes me remember it. But yeah, this is very important. Identify all the triggers there are. You might not be able to remember past binges, but let's be real, there will be more. There's always going to be more. So next time you binge or next time you're about to binge, try to think of what happened today, this week, this month, whatever, that made me seek comfort in food, because I'm assuming that that's most of the time the scenario, but something is leading you to binge. So you need to identify that and then write it down, repeat it in your head, whatever. I'd recommend writing it down and then learn to recognize these triggers, okay? So that you can prepare yourself for the mental battle that you're going to have probably later on in the day when you want to binge. And yeah, that's exactly what I've written down here. When a binge is about to happen, think of your triggers of the day, or as I said, of the week, of the month. What's the reasoning? Are you about to eat for comfort? And then say to yourself, are you consciously going to stuff yourself and feel miserable afterwards? Be so aware of the moment. Be aware of the trigger. Be aware that you recognize the trigger and you know that you're at the point of binging. And then just be conscious. Think of what you're about to do. Ask yourself in your head, maybe out loud, are you going to stuff yourself right now? Are you going to binge? Feel miserable? And sometimes if the trigger isn't strong enough and you caught it early on enough and you prepared yourself mentally, you can, in this situation, just say, no, it's not worth it. I'm not going to do it. And this has helped me, myself, on a couple of occasions, and it has definitely stopped me from binging on those days. And then also just think of how good the next day is going to feel. At night, you're really fighting the binge. You really want to, but you don't. The next day, you feel so happy. So happy you didn't consume all those calories. So happy you don't wake up bloated, fat, maybe with acne. So happy you got a good night's rest. So happy you dealt with that trigger without seeking the comfort of food. But you just handled that completely yourself. Man, that next day, it's the best day you've had in a long time, trust me. So yeah, these things right here, these 3 steps, so important. Please try to master these. You can prevent so much damage if you just try to focus on these 3 steps. And yeah, a few to-dos and a few to-not-dos. I basically just made these like opposites of each other. So aim to do better than last time. If you do binge, just aim to binge less food. Or aim to go longer without binging than last time. Don't put yourself in the mindset of I am never allowed to binge again, because let's be real, you will. It's never worked out. This mindset of saying, okay, I can never let that happen again, because I think that unconsciously you're just restricting yourself. It makes it even harder. But let's say you're now 1 day without binging, try to go for 2 days. Maybe you'll binge again. Next time, go for 3 days without binging. And before I was able to implement this, going longer without binging, I found some success in just binging less. I don't know how, I don't really know why, it doesn't make sense to me. But at one point I was still binging, but just not completely to the point of that insane discomfort in your gut. Instead of binging 5,000, 10,000 calories, I just have 2,000, 3,000. And after that, I don't know, it was like I found enough comfort, or maybe not even finding enough comfort, but just not wanting to experience the uncomfortable feeling the next day of the sluggishness, the stomach aches, whatever. Okay, it's done now. And the thing is, the first time you do this is going to be very hard, but once you've done it, you can do it again next time. It's that first step that's so hard, because it's something so foreign to you. But next time you binge, just binge half of the food that you normally would, and then just stop. Please, just try that. I know it's going to be so hard, and as I said, I don't even know how I did it. It doesn't make any sense to me. But once you do it once, then you know you can do it. And then next time you can do it again. You've already done it once. You've proven to yourself that you are the master over the binge, not these urges. So yeah, just aim to do better than last time. Don't say it's never going to happen again, because it most likely will. And I had a very long streak. I went 27 days binge free, which is absolutely insane. I was binging multiple times per week. And then yeah, it started with less volume. And then after 1 week, I was like, okay, I made it to 1 week. Let's make it to 2. Made it to 2. I was like, let's make it to 3. I failed 1 day away from 4 weeks, basically. 1 day short of 4 weeks. And you know what my goal is now? I'm just gonna go 8 weeks, I'm just making it a challenge for myself. I'm currently only like 4 days back into the game, maybe not even, might actually be 3. But I'm just going to do better than last time again. And sometimes it's not realistic to look week by week, might be too hard. Just go day by day. Just tell yourself, today I'm not binging, tomorrow, if I feel like it, I can go and binge. I can eat everything I want. Then next day comes, most likely you do not want to binge. The urge might be there, but deep down you don't want to. So just tell yourself again, okay, not today, but tomorrow I can let myself binge. It's okay. I have it planned. Tomorrow I'm going to binge. Then tomorrow comes and you don't want to. So you simply just don't. And try to postpone it every single day for as long as you can. Also something to do, try to be surrounded by less trigger food. You know, if you can identify certain foods as trigger foods for your binge, just don't get them from the grocery store, or just keep them out of sight if your family's getting them. And yeah, definitely don't still get your favorite trigger food all the time. You know, that's setting yourself up for failure, because you know if it's in the house, you're likely to end binging on it, or you're likely to end up binging on it, sorry. If it's not in the house, you're not going to be able to binge on it. Or you'll have to go out of your way to get it, which is not always likely. It is definitely possible, I've done it in the past myself as well, to go out of my way to get food to binge on, but it's a lot less likely that you're going to binge if the trigger food is not in your house or anywhere in your surrounding. And what I would recommend, attempt to eat your trigger foods on good days. Good days being days where you're not likely to binge, days where you have not recognized a trigger. Days where you're low stress, good sleep, whatever, not seeking comfort. Try to just have a little bit, a normal human portion of your trigger food. Just because you can. It's a good day. You can eat that without triggering a binge. I know that might not be true, but that's what you need to tell yourself. You cannot live with this scared feeling of a certain food forever. You need to get comfortable with that food. I've done this myself as well. I have certain trigger foods. On days where I'm doing really well and I'm not feeling the urge to binge whatsoever, have that trigger food. And as I said, have a normal portion, plan it in, think like, okay, in 2 hours I'm going to have a normal portion, and I'm going to leave it at that, and just see how that works for you. If it doesn't work, then probably don't try it again. But once again, only do this on a day where you are very unlikely to binge. There are no triggers that you recognized earlier on in the day or whatever. You've been doing good. I would say in those scenarios, eat a normal portion of your trigger food, see how it goes. You know, become familiar with the feeling of not feeling out of control around that food, but just having a normal portion, enjoying it, and then going on with your day. You definitely don't want to eat your trigger food on the days where you are likely to binge, because, I mean, that's just going to end up with you binging. And then also just a bunch of things that I have personally tried. You know, mindset shifts, diet approaches, whatever. I've probably forgotten to write down a few things in here. If I remember anything like actually truly important that I don't have written down right here and that I'm not talking about, I'll just write it in the description or a pinned comment, whatever. But yeah, what if I tried intermittent fasting, which is basically time restricted eating? You know, maybe you skip breakfast and you only eat from lunch to dinner, whatever. Only eat from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m., whatever. Just basically putting still the same amount of food that you usually eat. It's not like you're completely skipping your breakfast, but you're just combining it into the time frame where you would usually only eat lunch and dinner, whatever. Just putting all the food that you would usually eat in a shorter time period throughout the day. I still kind of do this, but not really. I don't like fasting for too long in the morning. I just get pretty hangry. I personally, instead of having my breakfast at like 7 a.m., I can postpone it to like 10 a.m. And that is still 3 extra hours that you have given yourself without food. So that is a longer time without food and less time throughout the whole day that you're going to be eating. So it feels like you're eating more and you feel less restricted because you're still eating the same amount of food that you usually would, but just in a shorter time frame. I mean, I honestly think this is great. I don't think you should make it like a challenge to go as long as possible without eating, because if you rack up a lot of hunger in the morning, that can actually catch up to you in the evening. Even though if you ate the same stuff that you usually would, you basically ate enough, but those hunger signals from the morning can still be floating around, and that can actually trigger a binge or overeating later in the day. So yeah, I would recommend at least trying this and just seeing if it's comfortable for you, seeing if you can handle it. And maybe just implementing it like me, like only a few hours of not eating. For me, that works pretty well. Gaining knowledge, kind of like what you might be doing right now if you're getting new information right now, just watching YouTube, studies, reading books. I mean, to me, this is a 10 out of 10. You're just becoming more familiar with your problem and ways to deal with it. So yeah, not really much to comment here. This is 10 out of 10. Talking to other people about it, yeah, I don't really recommend this. I already mentioned this earlier. People generally don't understand the struggle. I would recommend talking to some people that actually know the struggle, that maybe deal with it themselves as well. Or I guess a therapist if that's your thing. I don't really like that. I've never tried it, by the way, but I'm just not really open to it. Maybe I'm close minded. I really might be. I kind of am because I've never tried it. But yeah, I just don't think it's for me. But talking to people that know what it's like, leave a comment. Leave a comment with your struggle if you're watching this. No clue if this video will get any views, but if you are watching this and you think like, hey, I need someone to talk to, leave a comment. I'll respond. I'm here. I know what it's like. But yeah, I wouldn't go around talking to people that don't know what it's about because they'll probably just give you weird looks, tell you that you're crazy. That's at least my experience. Your surroundings might react completely different, might be very supportive. But yeah, this is just ya boy's experience. Diets I have tried, if it fits your macros, 100% clean, I'll try protein, blah 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 blah. Intermittent fasting, as I just said. Carb cycling, also pretty good, makes sense. Carb cycling is basically just eating less carbs on rest days and higher carbs on days where you're maybe doing cardio, hitting the gym, whatever. I mean, to me, it makes perfect sense because you don't need as many carbs on a rest day. So yeah, just a good way to keep your weekly caloric intake, monthly caloric intake, whatever. Just a cycle through your caloric intake with carbs. I think it's good, makes perfect sense. Ultra high protein. I kind of like this. People nowadays are like on the lower protein, higher carb trend, which makes complete sense. But protein does help with satiety. And I have experienced less food noise if I just up my protein with like 50 grams every single day. I usually have around 5 meals per day, and if I just add like 10 grams of protein to every single meal, I tend to have less food noise. Might be placebo, I'm not sure. But hey, even if it's placebo, it's still working. So yeah, I like high protein. 100% clean. I mean, I think this is the best diet if you can stick to it. I don't do this. I can't stick to it. Also, just because of social situations, social events, other people being involved in your life, relationships, whatever. But if this is something that you can keep up, I think 100% clean is the best diet there is. You're literally just eliminating junk food, which is usually what you end up binging on. I personally don't end up binging on like veggies or fruits or whatever. It's pretty much always junk food, or at least processed, refined foods. So yeah, if you literally have only 100% clean, non-processed foods in your surroundings, then it's going to be very hard to binge. And this is more kind of my approach if it fits your macros. This is basically just eating whatever as long as it is in with your caloric budget and your kind of macro targets. So for me, high protein. I still try to get like my daily servings of veggies and fruit. Well, I don't try, I get that. I tend to get that before I have like my processed foods, whatever, stuff that isn't really nutritious. I make sure I cover my dietary needs and then I kind of just eat whatever as long as it fits in my macros. And I personally really like this approach. It isn't the most healthy approach, but it is the most balanced approach, I feel like. I think I kind of unintentionally do like 80-20, 80% clean, 20% garbage. Most people do 80-20 in a day. I do it more like in a week. Throughout the week, I eat pretty clean. And then during the weekend, if I'm out, whatever, I'll just have junk food and I'll eat mostly junk food. That's kind of my approach. I personally really like it. High volume eating, what people usually mean when they say this is like a lot of lettuce to your foods, whatever, cauliflower, rice, blah blah blah. I don't really like this. If you are often hungry, this definitely works. It fills you up. But in terms of binge eating, I don't binge eat because I'm hungry. I can be completely full and start a binge. Hunger to me isn't really a problem. I feel pretty satiated throughout the day. So it doesn't really do anything for me. It's the same if people say like drink a glass of water before you have a meal because it fills up your stomach. My struggle with binge eating is not the feeling of hunger or the feeling of having an empty stomach. That is not ever what triggers my binge. Within my caloric budget, or just basically the foods I eat, I feel pretty satiated all the way throughout the day. I only binge because either I'm bored or like an emotional trigger. So hunger isn't really contributing towards that. So for me, this isn't really relevant. But if you are someone that struggles with hunger, I would really recommend high volume eating. Maybe also some higher protein, more veggies, more fruit, more fiber. Drink a glass of water before your meals, all that stuff. But yeah, for me, I don't really care about that. Increasing expenditure, cardio, steps. Big fan of this, I'm walking on a walking pad right now, getting my steps in, increasing my expenditure. What this does is, if you're doing cardio, first off, you can't even, well, you can think of food, but you're probably more focused on the activity of cardio and you're burning more calories. So you can eat more food, more calories throughout the day, so you don't have to be as restricted as if you did not do any cardio. Me doing my steps and my cardio is the difference between like a 2200 calorie maintenance and a 3000 calorie maintenance. That's 800 calories. That's a lot. You can consume quite a lot of junk food for 800 calories, so you don't have to be as restricted. That's like almost an entire pizza that you can eat extra on top of what I would usually eat just by doing my cardio and steps. And obviously, just for cardiovascular health, cardio is really important. Steps are also really good for you. Just being active, I really recommend this. This is like 10 out of 10. If you were to do any of these things, I would say increasing expenditure is the best thing that you can do. Diet soda, 10 out of 10. Not really too much to say about this. Artificial sweeteners, they are very safe for you. There have been so many studies. Don't think that the artificial sweeteners are going to kill you, are going to be bad for you. It's so much better than regular soda. And it's just another way to keep your calorie intake lower, so that you can eat more food, also junk food, so that you don't have to restrict yourself as much. And also just diet soda, it can kill your cravings. If you're craving something sweet, have a diet soda. That can really help. That can do a lot better than drinking a glass of water. So yeah, just for increasing your calorie budget and killing cravings, diet soda is also a 10 out of 10. Like, if you don't implement this into your diet, into your lifestyle, you're really missing out. Tracking how many days binge free. So yeah, this is something I do. I have an app. I use the I Am Sober app. I think it's for tracking your time sober, as the name implies. I just track how many days binge free. I don't know, I guess it works. I haven't done it for that long. But I can imagine if I'm like 1 week binge free, or let's say 2 weeks binge free or 3 weeks binge free, I won't be able to remember if I'm 2 weeks, 4 weeks. I don't really have a clue. And I just like knowing, okay, I'm so long binge free to do better than last time, to go longer binge free than last time. I kind of like it. It also gives me something to feel proud of when I reach a new milestone, So yeah, I can recommend this, but I don't think it's like a life hack. I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference. I've tried gratitude journaling. This is kind of just to like offset the stress or like mental battles, I guess, that might lead to a binge. I don't really think this did that much for me. I was both just like actually journaling, just like writing about my day, whatever, and also just writing things I'm grateful for. I was also writing down things that were stressing me out, whatever, but I would also try to write them in a positive approach. So yeah, I did this. I don't know if it really worked, honestly. I think at the start I was having an easier time not binging, but I also now looking back think that was kind of just placebo, because I was hearing like, oh, this is doing great things for me, thinking that it was making me feel better. But then again, if placebo works, it works, But then eventually I just stopped for 1 day, and if you're out of the rhythm, you just completely stop. So after that, I just never got back to it, and honestly, I don't really notice a difference. It doesn't really feel like I'm missing out on anything right now. I feel the exact same as I did when I was journaling. So some people swear by this. There's also good evidence supporting journaling. So I would say give it a try. At least give it a try, I'm not going to discredit it because I feel like it doesn't work for me, because it works for a lot of people. So I would say give it a try, see if it works. And it might help you out a lot, and maybe it won't, But yeah, I would say give this a try, might work. And if it doesn't work, then oh well. Out of sight, out of mind. This is what I said earlier. Just keep junk food not within your surrounding. I personally, if I see a trigger food, I will actually grab it and I will put it in a place where I usually wouldn't look for food or whatever, or just put it in the pantry where it isn't open in my vision when I'm walking through the kitchen. Even though I'm literally touching the food, I have this trigger food in my hand, I'm thinking about eating it. Just not being able to see it anymore after I walk around the kitchen, it really works for me. Because, that trigger food might be laying in the kitchen the whole day. You probably walk through the kitchen a lot. I personally do. If it's constantly in your vision, it's going to be really hard to control yourself. So I personally really recommend just picking it up, putting it somewhere else where you can't see it. Really works for me. Intuitive eating. This is one that I'm still really experimenting with. I'm kind of intuitive eating right now. The thing is, if I purely intuitive eat and I don't track, my calories and my macros, especially my protein, it kind of stresses me out because I don't know if I'm eating too much, too little, and I feel like intuitive eating, especially for somebody that has like a binge eating background, is really hard because your eating patterns and your hunger hormones, I feel like, are all over the place. But what I have been trying lately is just only eating when I feel actually hungry. But then when I do eat, I do still weigh it out, I do still track it, blah blah blah. But let's say I'm aiming for 2,500 calories in a day. If at the end of the day I'm not at 2,500, let's say I'm at 2,200, usually I would then fill those calories with extra food even though I'm not even really hungry. Nowadays, I try to not do that. If I'm not actually hungry, I'll just let those calories be. And then on another day, if I am extra hungry or if I'm craving a snack, then I can have that snack and I can go over my calorie budget because, the last day I was under my calorie budget. So I can just kind of even it out. And that works pretty well for me because it just gives you peace of mind. Certain days where you're almost at your calories, but you really want that snack and you don't even want to binge, but you don't want to restrict yourself from that snack. And you can just have it because it's okay, because your calories will even out and you'll make up for it on another day where you're not as hungry and you won't have to eat. So yeah, that approach I really like. Intuitive eating also kind of stresses me out when I don't track macros because I don't know if I'll hit my proteins. I don't care that much about my carbs and fats, but I want my proteins to be on point. So yeah, if I'm not tracking that, it makes me more stressed than not, I don't find tracking calories stressful. Some people do. So, if tracking calories or macros is something that stresses you out and you're not that worried about your macronutrient intake, give intuitive eating a try. I think it's great. Just listen to your body. Only really eat when you're hungry. Stop eating when you're full. This is something I'm still working on as well. You don't always have to finish all your food according to intuitive eating. I don't know. I feel like this applies to people in a lot of different ways and you can implement this into your life in a lot of different ways. And I feel like somewhere a middle ground between tracking and intuitive eating works really well for me. I still need to perfect it for myself, but I would definitely recommend giving this a try. Then finally, caffeine maxing. This is the last thing I wrote down. As I mentioned earlier, I probably forgot some things. If I remember something that I want to include, I'll just put it in the description. Caffeine, great. I'm a pretty lightweight. I weigh well, don't mean to be funny, but I weigh 67 kg. So, I shouldn't consume as much caffeine as someone who weighs 85 or 90 kg, whatever. Caffeine is pretty good at just keeping you focused on a task and then not thinking about food. Or just by suppressing your hunger, you will feel less hungry if you consume caffeine. So yeah, I would definitely recommend just a healthy, safe dosage of caffeine. It's great, 10 out of 10. Just don't become dependent on it. But yeah, caffeine, 10 out of 10, supplement. Do you want to call it a supplement? I guess it's a supplement. Yeah, caffeine, great. Then finally, a few things I would not listen to. It's cope. You do tell people about your binging and, you say you eat a lot, a lot, and people say, well, you exercise a lot, so it's okay. No, it's not okay. Binge eating is unhealthy, not physically, but also mentally. You're eating against your own will. It's really bad for your gut health as well. Your digestion gets completely fucked. So yeah, don't listen to this. You might exercise a lot, but you eat a lot more. You cannot out-exercise a true binge-eating diet. That's literally impossible. And that kind of ties into this as well. Your body needs that food. It's kind of like the same thing, you exercise a lot, so you burn a lot of calories. You need a lot of calories, but you don't need 10,000 calories in one sitting. That doesn't happen. And your body doesn't need that food. Your body needs nutritious food. Food that actually is healthy for you. Not 10 bars of chocolate in one sitting. So yeah, when people say this, you're just not informed about nutrition. You don't know what you're talking about. And I think don't restrict yourself is cope as well. If it's a stressful day and you're restricting yourself from a trigger food, I don't think that that's bad. I think that that's just discipline and looking out for yourself, taking care of yourself. Other people that don't struggle with this might not see it as that, which makes sense. But sometimes you have to not listen to what somebody else has to say and look out for you. You know what's best for you, others don't. You know how you feel, you know what you need, okay? I feel like with the struggle, you really have to help yourself. You have to be your own best buddy. So yeah, these were the main things that I was thinking of for stuff that you probably shouldn't listen to. But yeah, that's basically it. I was planning to talk for like 15 minutes. I've been recording for almost an hour. I don't know how long this actual video is going to be. I don't know how much I'm going to cut out. But I think this video is probably going to be nearing like half an hour or something. It's pretty crazy. Once again, not sure if this video will get any views, but if there is somebody watching this, I really appreciate it. I hope this video was able to help you somehow. And yeah, if you need somebody to talk to, just leave a comment. I'll be sure to respond. And thank you for listening.